Today, we're going to be talking about area and what area is. Basically, when we say area, we're talking about how much space a 2D shape takes up on the page. For area, we could also say it's the amount of surface inside of a 2D shape. When we're working with area and trying to solve problems while we're finding out the area, talking about the units is one of the most important things. The units have to always have squared at the end of them. So for example, if I had worked out the area of a square in centimetres, I'd have 1 centimetre squared. If it was in metres, I'd have 1 metre squared. Or if it was in kilometres, 1 kilometre squared. An easy way to remember this is your time to find area, you times length by width. So you're timesing two numbers together. I'm timesing two numbers together. I put a 2 at the end of the units. It's also important that we can convert between units. So for example, 1 centimetre squared is equal to 100 millimetres squared. 1 metre squared is equal to 10,000 centimetres squared. 1 hectare, now 1 hectare is a little bit different. 1 hectare is equal to 10,000 metres squared. We don't have a squared after hectares, because hectares is a unit we only use when talking about surface. We usually use it when we're talking about land or property. So, for example, your property might be on 1 or 2 hectares of land. Our last unit is 1 kilometre squared, and that's equal to 1 million metres squared, or 100 hectares. Like with length, we have a conversion chart that we can use to convert between kilometres squared, hectares, metres squared, centimetres squared, and millimetres squared. If we want to go from kilometres squared to hectares, we times by 100. We times by 100 because there are 100 hectares in every kilometre squared. If we want to go from hectares to metres squared, we times by 10,000 because there are 10,000 metres squared in a hectare. If we want to go from metres squared to centimetres squared, we times by 10,000 because there are 10,000 centimetres squared in a metre. If we want to go from centimetres squared to a millimetre squared, we times by 100 because there are 100 millimetres squared in a centimetre squared. Again, like with length, if we want to go the opposite way, we do the opposite operation. So from millimetres squared to centimetres squared, we divide by 100. From centimetres squared to metres squared, we divide by 10,000. From metres squared to hectares, again we divide by 10,000. And from hectares to kilometres squared, we divide by 100.